Hi, Steve Ball here from Cool Riffs Guitar School here in Newquay, England, and what I'm going to be doing today is a video on all the, well, not all of the open chords, but the main ones that you want to know as a beginner guitar player. And what we're going to do is we're going to talk about, or I'm going to talk about, what chords fit together, which is going to be really useful for you to get some turnaround sequences played and sort of start you off with your chords. Right, okay, the first chord I am going to use or show you is the A major chord, and I'm going to show you two ways of playing it. I'm going to show you a nice straight line shape, which is what we're going to do with 3 fingers, and I'm going to show you a nice straight line shape with 1 finger. Okay, so there's going to be 2 different ways of doing it for 2 different purposes. Now, when we learn chords, the way I do it, or the way I explain it, is I'm into astronomy, looking at the stars and looking into the sky at night, and we have what's called constellations, and constellations are the patterns that the stars make. So we can see the plough in the sky, or the panhandle if you live in the northern hemisphere. I live in England, so we see that, or Cassiopeia, which looks like a big W. If you live in the southern hemisphere, you can see Crux, which is a cross, and you can work your way across the sky using these constellation patterns. That's what I use when I teach people how to play chords. Not star patterns, but we use patterns and shapes. And the first pattern we're going to look at is the A chord pattern, and that's if we got and it's a straight line. If we got a marker pen and we just join the dots of or the finger markers together, you'd have a straight line. Now I play it, because my hands are quite large, with these 3 fingers, so what I would call my 2nd, my 3rd and my 4th finger. If your hand's a little bit smaller, okay, your finger's a bit skinnier than mine, you probably want to use your 1st, 2nd and your 3rd finger. It's up to you. Okay, now I'm going to show you here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get to the 2nd fret. Now the guitar neck is divided by these pieces of steel here, okay, and these are called frets, or it's fret wire, and these in between are called frets. Okay, so that's what divides it. So when I refer to frets, that's what it's all about. That's the 1st fret, 2nd fret and so forth, up to I think 22 frets on this guitar. The strings, I use a mnemonic, or it's like a sentence where every letter of each word you can use to name the strings. So I use every Alsatian dog gets big ears. Every Alsatian dog gets big ears. EADGBE. Right, okay, so that's that part. So we've got the frets and we've got the strings. And sometimes I will refer to this as the skinny E string, and probably this one as the fat E string, so we know which side of the guitar we are. Righty ho. So the A chord is a straight line chord. Looks like a straight line if you drew it. And I'm going to get my 3 fingers, okay, and I'll play it like so. So I'm going to leave the open A string, which is the 2nd thickest down, open, and I'm going to get my 2nd finger, my 3rd and my 4th, or you can use your 1st, your 2nd and your 3rd, as I said earlier on, but I'm going to use my 2nd finger on the D string, so that's the 3rd thickest down, and then my 3rd finger is going to go onto the G string, which is the next string down, and my little finger is going to go onto the B string, which is the 2nd thinnest string. So the little E string, the top E, or as I call it, the top E, because it sounds high. In fact, most people call that the top E, but anyway, the skinny E is left open. It's a lovely chord. It's a very common chord to play. Okay. Now then, I play it a little bit different as well. The reason I play it a little bit different, if I'm not, for example, if we've got somebody going for an exam and they've got to play an open A with this skinny string sound in, then we'll use what we've just done. If we don't need to do that, I've got a bit of a naughty way of doing it, but it's a very useful way, especially when you advance on the guitar, how to play an A chord. Right, here we go. I just use 1 finger. I bar it, so I place my finger across a few strings, and I get a little bit of an angle with my finger. So you can see I'm getting a little bit of angle pointing towards myself. And my thumb is pressing on the back of the neck. You can see that. Okay, it's pressing on the back of the neck towards the top. Okay, my hand is going to be a little bit different to your hands, as in size-wise. So yours might be a little bit further back, or maybe a bit further over if you've got bigger hands than I have. Okay, so this is my A chord. It sounds very similar, but it hasn't got that top string open. But it does allow me to add other chord patterns on top of it. I can kind of overlay it because I've got 3 fingers spare, and I can also play little melodies or little licks, as we call it, over the top of it. So when we're playing kind of rock music or blues, things like that, it's ideal for this function. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to add extras on so you can see what I'm talking about. So there's my chord, and here we go. Really super useful. Also, the shape can be moved up and down the neck when you're more advanced, but you just don't want to be playing that open A string anymore because that's not needed once we start moving it. Okay, that is the A major chord, and that is our first chord. Right, now it's time for the B chord. It's really similar to the A chord, but I'm going to use my second finger, my third finger, and my fourth finger. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to place it at the 4th fret, those 3 fingers at the 4th fret. So I'm going to go D string, G string, B string. Okay, and then I'm going to get my first finger, I'm going to place that on the 2nd fret. Okay, so that's how I get that. And my root note now is on the D string, so that's the 3rd string down. Yeah, so my 3rd thickest string is now my root note, and I've got that nice little B chord there. Now this is a movable shape, so it means that because the strings, there's no open strings between any of my fingers that I'm holding down, that means I can move it up and down the neck. So if I moved it down the neck, which is that away, we call it down, the pitch drops, yeah, or the sound drops towards the headstock here. So if I move it down one, I'm playing a B flat major there, okay? And if I moved it up one, that's a C major, okay? So it's a C chord, okay? And you can move it up and down the neck. I personally wouldn't move it up and down the neck, you know, up here, because it's just a little bit uncomfortable to play that, so that's all. But down here, it's perfect, okay? And that's a B chord. Right, moving on to the next chord. It's one of the most commonest chords that you're going to play. It's the C major chord, and it's great. It's not too difficult to play, and it kind of sits in between positions of F and G, as in your finger positions. Anyway, let's have a look at the C major chord. Nice and easy to play, and what we've got is we've got this kind of finger pattern here. So if you look at that, this is key to the C, F and G chord patterns as far as I'm concerned when I teach. Now I'm going to put my first finger on the 1st fret on the B string, which is the 2nd thinnest, on the 1st fret, and I'm going to put my 2nd finger onto the 2nd fret on the D string, which is the 3rd thickest, and I'm going to put my 3rd finger onto the 3rd fret on the A string, which is the 2nd thickest. And then I'm not going to play this big fat E string, not going to play that, but I'm going to play all the other strings, and my root note, which names the chord, is the C note here, which is on the 3rd fret on the A string. There you go, what a lovely chord that one. Okay, so you can practice that by doing a root, doing a strum down, strum up, strum down, strum up. So that's root, down, up, that's what I was playing. Because without any rhythm, chords don't really make any sense. You need rhythm to create music. There we go, so that's a nice C chord. Okay. Right, we're going to start on the D chord now. And the D chord is a really nice little chord. It's in the shape of a triangle. So if you think of a triangle, that's where we are with a D chord. And we need to get our fingers quite high up. So if I said we were on our tiptoes, if our fingers were toes, yeah, hold them high up, and you will get a nice D chord. Excuse my guitar a second. There we go. There we go. Okay, so I've got a nice little D chord. Now I'm going to show my guitar at the side here, so you can see I am really quite high up with my fingers there, and my thumb is quite high up over the top of the fretboard there. Yeah. Okay. It's a small kind of footprint on the guitar neck. It's not a big looking chord, but it is a really useful and very commonly used chord. And the D string here, the third thickest down, is its root note. So when I play from here, you can hear that there, nice. You might have to work on not hitting the A string and the E string. Okay, that just comes with a little bit of practice, and that's the D chord. It can move around on the neck too, but just play the top 3 skinny strings when you're doing that. Okay, that's the D chord. It's a beauty, and it's great for as you get more advanced, doing little finger picking things. So here's a D chord. Really nice. D major. Right, the next chord is E major. Now, E major isn't used that often when you start to play guitar, because a lot of the songs that you learn are normally in the key of C, and you're using C's, F's and G's, and A minors. But the E major chord really comes into its own as you get a little bit more into playing guitar, and it's used loads and loads for like shapes like bar chord shapes that you would learn as you get a little bit more advanced. But the E chord is really lovely. It's a big sounding chord too, because we use all 6 strings, and you can also do a cheeky little Spanish thing with it, which I'll show you in a second. Okay, so the E chord is dead easy, really. I'm going to use my 2nd finger on the 2nd fret on the A string, my 3rd finger on the 2nd fret on the D string, so that's on 2 of the same, it's on the same fret. Okay, that's great. And I'm going to use my 1st finger here, okay, and that's going to be on the G string there. Okay, so on the 1st fret. So I'm going to be playing the open E string too. Okay, and I'm going to go straight through to the skinny E at the top. Right, there we go. So I'm going to play that through. I've got to be on my tiptoes a little bit as far as my fingers are concerned, and my thumb does go quite a way over the top of the neck there, but I don't need to grip it too hard, just a little bit. You don't have to grip it quite as much as you would an F, for example. So that's the E major chord. Now, what I can do is be cheeky, and as I say on another video, I don't teach Spanish or classical, but I can get a Spanishy kind of effect or sound when I move the E chord up a couple of frets. Okay, so here we go. Listen to this. If I use my plectrum, I can get a Olé. Okay, so that is really cool for doing a bit of fake Spanish stuff, and that is the E major chord. Okay, on to the next chord. This is the F major chord, and the F major chord does cause people a little bit of a problem, and I'm going to try and explain how it works and how we can get around that. If I've got a bit of a squeaky guitar, it's because I've got this strap lock on here and I tend to squeak a little bit, so you have to excuse that. Okay. Now the F chord looks very similar to the C chord, where it's got these two fingers like so, okay, like we had before. Okay, so the problem with the F chord is it's holding down the top 2 skinny skinny strings, which is the B and E chord, B and E strings. So what we need to do is we need to hold those down and point your finger towards your chin or your neck. Okay. Now once you've done that, you've got to then pop your second and your third finger, your second onto the G string and your third finger onto the D string. Okay, so that's the third thickest for the D and the third thinnest for the G. Okay, and then you're going to play off that D string down like that. Okay. Now the problem is when people learn to play this chord, they tend not to hold down or be able to get enough pressure onto the little skinny E string here, yeah? So they don't get that note. Okay, that is the problem. So they probably play this chord instead, which is a lovely chord. That's F major 7, okay? But that's not quite what we want. What we want is an F chord, an F major. Now then, another thing that I mentioned earlier on is about getting the grip with your thumb, okay? So the more you can get a grip with this thumb, the more you can put pressure onto this chord and get that first finger flattened down. Now remember, that first finger really needs to be pointing towards your neck or your chin, and also you can just about get it on that fret wire without causing it to buzz as well. Okay, so I'm playing through the notes as well individually, just to check that you're getting that really nice ringing sound of the F. Okay, so that is the F. As I say, the thumb, as you can see, comes right over the top there. I mean, obviously I've got quite big hands, I'm quite a big chap, but the more you can get your thumb round, the better to get that grip on that guitar. Okay, it is a little bit tricky to start off with. Once you've got it, you're fine. It probably took me, excuse me, probably took me about an hour when I first started go. I mean, a solid hour, not just, you know, a little bit of this and a little bit of that. A solid hour of trying it and maybe a little bit of cursing to try and get it sorted out. But once I got it, which is great. This chord also is super handy. It's because all the strings are covered and there's no open strings between, you know, any of the notes that we're playing. It's movable. Okay, so we can move it up and down the neck. So each time that you move up a note, a fret, should I say, and a note, that's F major, go up one, that's F sharp major, and then up one more, you've got G major. Okay, so these are really cool for getting those sort of toppy, funky kind of, you know, sort of rhythms and chops going off there. Wicked for that. As I say, a lot of people start getting a bit, you know, frightened about doing F and whatever. You can play F if you wish. It might be a little bit cumbersome, but you can actually use your first finger and second finger, the first on the B and the second finger on the E, and then use your third and fourth finger to play it like so, if you cannot flatten that finger down enough to get that grip on the F. Okay, as I say, it really is, the secret is pointing that finger, the first finger towards your neck or your chin, whatever, and trying to get as much grip as you can with your thumb. Okay, so that's F major, and I'm going to go through changing from C to F major to G major in a short while, so that you get an idea of how similar they are in sort of patterns and whatever. Okay, that's F major. Okay, here's G major. Now this chord isn't too difficult to play. It's a lovely big sounding chord. It uses all the strings on the guitar, but I play it typically slightly different to how it is in the chord books. Okay, I'll play it a little bit different. So I'm going to show you how it's played in the chord book, so you can play it this way if you wish, but the reason I play it differently is I can get a really smooth transition between C, F and G chords, okay, because I'm using very, very similar shapes. Okay, so here we go. Here's the G chord. It's a lovely shape. I'm going to put my first finger on the second fret on the A string, that's the second thickest string. I'm going to get my second finger, I'm going to place that on the third fret on the thickest string, okay, and then I'm going to get my third finger, I'm going to pop it on the, it's a bit weird this one because you've got to kind of squeeze it in there. I'm going to get it on the third fret, so my third finger on the third fret on the really skinny E string, okay, so, and then I just play it off, the root note is on this E string, on this big string, and you get a lovely big sounding chord there. Okay, that's a G chord. Okay, now then, I personally do not play G like this. It's the one that they show you in the book, so I thought I'd better put that one down just to make sure everybody's happy with that. What I do is I play exactly the same shape, I just use different fingers. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my hand off. Oh, and also my thumb on that G is getting a good grip at the back there. Okay, I'm going to take my hand off and I'm going to now use my second finger on the second fret on the A string. My third finger is going to go on the third fret on the big fat E string. And my little finger, okay, now this little finger might start wobbling around and collapsing on you because you might not be used to using it, okay, but with a little bit of time it soon strengthens up, so don't worry about that. Okay, I'm going to use my little finger on the third fret on the skinny E string, okay? So I get exactly the same sound, it's exactly the same chord, okay? So why do I do it? Okay, well, for one, it's very easy if you want to play a little country. I mean, I'm a bluesy rock player, funky kind of player, but I do like my country stuff as well. So it's great for me playing straight off the bat. So I've got my shape there. And go straight into country. That's kind of cool. Okay. Also, it's really good if you want to go from a G major to a slightly more advanced chord, which you'll learn when you do your blues, a G7. All I do is I take the little pinky off, take that off, put my first finger down on the first fret, and it takes me to a G7. So what I'm doing is pivoting, like that. Dead easy. Once you've got your G major down, okay, notice my thumb is changed position a little bit. It's really straight there, see? So I've got a really good grip, especially this part of my hand here, yeah? So that gives me a good grip. This finger, this little finger, will possibly collapse. It'll be wobbling all over the place, but with a little bit of practice, you'll be absolutely fine. Okay, now then, here is the bit that makes sense. The two fingers that I'm using here for my C chord, in the mid, I call it the middle, okay, because it kind of sits in the middle of these three chords, the C, F and G. These two, you can practice what I call bunny hopping. Just pop down towards the floor, hop it down there to get what I call the F position or the top. Go back to your middle and then go to the bottom. And that's the G position at the bottom. Okay, so I've got the C in the middle, F at the top, C in the middle, G at the bottom. Okay, so that's middle, top and bottom. Okay, so I'm going to put my first finger on and I'm just going to play through the C major, bunny hop, and what I'm going to do with my first finger is I'm just going to lay it down over the two skinny strings and point it a little bit towards my chin or my neck, okay, which gives me the F. Back down to C. I'm just going to bunny hop back and just relax my first finger so it rises slightly, okay, into a C chord, which releases that little skinny string, so it's now open, okay. Now I'm going to bunny hop these two fingers again, popping that down and then popping my little finger down, and it makes a G chord for me, okay. So I've got this same pattern of these two fingers moving around. I haven't got to move into that position for the G anymore, which is a little bit of a pain, okay. So C to G, I have to switch everything around. I can just go from C to G like that, and I can play real quick with it. So F, C and G, really quick. It's not an issue and it's not an effort anymore once you get used to that G shape, okay, and of course the F shape. So that is why I play the G not with my first and second and third fingers like so. I play mine with my second, third and little finger, because it just means that transferring from that to C to F, which is used all the time, okay, especially if you're playing in the key of C. The key of C is C, F, G as the main three chords in that key, okay. Right, so that is why I do it, and that is how to do it, okay. Next, it's going to be A minor chords and E minor chords. Okay, here we go. The A minor chord, it's quite an easy chord to play, and it looks just like an E major chord but on different strings. Okay, so it's quite easy. Okay, so how do we do that one? Well, the root note is the A string, which is the second thickest one. Remember, the strings go E, A, D, G, B, E, and a little mnemonic, that means it's like a sentence, but with each word the first letter is what you're using. So I use a mnemonic that I made up many moons ago. Every Alsatian dog gets big ears, and that's from the big thick string down to little thin strings. I've got every Alsatian dog gets big ears. Okay, so that E, A, D, G, B, E. Okay, so what I'm using is, on this chord, is I'm using the open A string, which is its root, which names the chord of A minor. Okay, and then I'm going to get my second finger, I'm going to place that on the D string. Okay, so that's the next one down. Then I'm going to place my third finger on the G string, which is the next one down. And then I'm going to place my first finger on the B string, which is the next one down, which is the second thinnest. So you should be on the second thinnest by now. Okay, and my thumb is quite a way down. Well, maybe I've got a quarter of my neck showing on the guitar now for my grip, because remember, when you play a chord, all chords, your hand shifts into different positions. Okay, and I'm quite on my tiptoes, I guess, for the A minor, so everything should be sounding nice and sweet and nice and clear. Okay, and now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give that a little bit of a rhythm. Okay, it looks just like an E chord. If an E chord looks like that, okay, an A minor is just the same shape, moved down towards the floor, one string. Okay, that's a lovely chord. It works really well with C, F and G, and I'm going to show you that now. So I'm going to play C, and then an A minor, and then an F, and then a G, and you'll probably go, oh, I've heard that before, because it's really common. So I've got my C, A minor, F. Can you hear my root notes as well? Just keeping myself in time there, like a little bass line. Okay, so that was C, A minor, F and G. So you can see why it works. Okay, and the A minor is the sixth note out of the C major scale, and it's called the relative minor as well. Okay, now the next chord and the final chord, okay, for this video, is E minor. E minor is a piece of cake to play. It's so easy, and it's a great sounding chord, and I've used it to play things like Behind Blue Eyes, and it sounds great, and Little Wing, stuff like that sounds really nice with it, by Hendrix. So here is the E minor, and that's it. Okay, my first finger is on the second fret on the A string, and my second finger, there we go, is on the second fret on the D string, and that's it. And you play every single chord, every single chord, every single note. It's a big sounding chord. Look at my thumb. Look at that. It's hardly gripping anything. It doesn't need to. It doesn't really need to, because my two fingers are pushing against this string, and my guitar is pushing against this sort of muscle at the base of my thumb. Okay, so it's a really quite an easy chord to play, and that's a really nice. That works really well in a sequence using G, E minor, C and D. Okay, because in the key of G, G is the most important note or chord, then C, then D, or some people might say D was more important than C. And then the E minor is actually the sixth note out of there, and that's G's relative minor, so it sounds real cool. You can play lots of songs with G, E minor, C and D, or changing them around a little bit, so you could be playing like more parts of More Than a Feeling by Boston, some Tracy Chapman, things like that. And anyway, here's G, E minor, C and D, so you get a bit of a feel for it. Okay, so G, E minor, C and D sounds absolutely great. Okay, and that is your basic chords. So learn those. Okay, you've got to remember that when you learn your basic chords, you've got to know what chords fit together, and that's my job to tell you. That's my job as a guitar teacher, a music teacher. Just playing any chords willy-nilly probably won't sound particularly nice. It's knowing what chords fit together that makes it. And also another important thing is the rhythm. If you have no rhythm, then it isn't going to sound very nice. And just because you might not have very good rhythm at the moment doesn't mean you can't learn how to have good rhythm. Yeah, because rhythm is everything. Okay, and that's why there's so many millions of songs around, because the rhythms change as well. Chord structures change, rhythm changes. There's just like infinite possibilities of what you can do. Okay, so practice those, and I can promise you, if you practice them, your fingertips will get a little bit sore. That's natural. They will callous over a little bit, not unsightly, but they will callous over, and it gets a lot easier. The skin hardens up a little bit on your fingertips, but you've got to give it time. Okay, don't give up on it. I didn't give up on it, so you'll be absolutely fine. Okay, thank you very much. I'll see you next time. I'm Steve Ball from Cool Riffs Guitar School in Newquay in Cornwall, and that's www.coolriffsguitar.co.uk or coolriffsemail@gmail.com, where you can get in contact with me. And I hope you have a great time with these chords.